Autumn in Beijing began with a chilly atmosphere that embraced a horrific secret. In that extravagant night party, who could have imagined that Yu Menglong, a symbol of composure and talent, would forever lie at the foot of a magnificent building? His sudden death is not just a loss, but also a painful question about the right to live, shady compromises, and the price of silence in the superficial world of entertainment. If you also feel your heart rate slowing down before these mysteries, please take a small moment to click follow. That is how we together keep the candle of truth about him from being extinguished. In a high-end complex in the Chaoyang district, the lights from luxury apartments were still glowing, reflecting off the glass panes with shimmering images of a city that never sleeps. Inside a penthouse on a high floor, a party was taking place in a private space where familiar faces of the elite gathered. No one could have suspected that, only a few hours later, that very party would become the center of a shocking incident. At dawn the next day, at the foot of that building, a body was discovered in a lifeless state. The man was Yu Menglong, a 37-year-old actor, once considered a promising face with a principled lifestyle and genuine talent. His passing not only caused bewilderment, but also opened up a series of unanswered questions about what happened behind the stage lights. In the first hours, hypotheses appeared densely, from a tragic accident to the possibility of a voluntary end to his life. However, as inexplicable details at the scene and forensic results gradually emerged, the picture became strangely complex. The unusual silence of the individuals present that night gradually formed a chain of suspicions, transcending the framework of an ordinary personal tragedy. At the center of those speculations, one name was repeatedly mentioned: Irene Song, a young actress possessing a pure image, whom the media affectionately called the goddess of youth. Her appearance at the party, her final interactions with Yu Menglong, and the complex connection between her and the powerful figures behind the scenes made it impossible for the public to ignore. However, up to the present time, no official conclusion has been reached, and all accusations remain at the level of suspicion. But behind the glamour, behind the reassurances and brief news reports, what truly happened on that fateful night? What mechanisms are operating behind the seemingly dazzling entertainment world? In this analytical journey, we will gradually peel back each detail, from the initial moments of the party and the abnormal signs in the investigation, to the widespread consequences the incident left behind. This is not just a story of a mysterious death. It is a test of the boundaries between truth, power, and silence in the modern entertainment industry. That evening began like many other social gatherings in the entertainment industry. The penthouse, located on a high floor of the complex in the Chaoyang district, was meticulously prepared. Soft yellow lights cast upon the glass walls, creating a space that was both private and luxurious. The owner of the apartment was Jay Guang, a screenwriter with extensive connections in the industry, who frequently stood behind high-profile projects. According to sources, this was not an ostentatious party, but a selective gathering where familiar faces in the film industry met to exchange ideas, connect, and discuss new cooperation opportunities. Yu Menglong appeared on time. He wore a dark suit of simple design, carrying no signs of showiness or glamour. Those present described him as maintaining a calm and polite demeanor, mostly chatting with a group of young actors. Throughout the time from the beginning of the evening until nearly 10:30, nothing unusual was recorded. He ate and drank lightly, only sipping a few mouthfuls of red wine, consistent with the image of someone preparing for a new role and being cautious with his physical condition. According to the accounts of several witnesses, Yu Menglong had shared that he was in a period of adjusting his daily routine to be ready for an upcoming project. He avoided drinking too much alcohol and paid special attention to what he put into his body. This detail later became one of the key points that led many to question what happened next that night. At approximately 10:30 in the evening, the atmosphere in the apartment underwent a slight change when Irene Song appeared. She arrived later than most of the guests. Her outfit was simple, with light colors, and her makeup was delicate, creating a sense of closeness and making it easy to gain sympathy. Irene quickly sat down near Yu Menglong, and the two began to converse. No signs of tension or conflict were recorded. From the outside, it was a normal scene between two colleagues in the same industry. Around 11 o'clock at night, according to the accounts of some people present, Irene Song offered Yu Menglong a glass of whiskey. Initially, he was said to have declined. However, after a few words of social persuasion, described as a gesture of gratitude for his presence at the party, Yu Menglong accepted the drink. No one in the room could have known that this seemingly small moment would become the starting point for a chain of events leading to tragedy. Approximately 15 to 20 minutes later, those sitting nearby noticed a distinct change in Yu Menglong. His speech began to lack coherence, his eyes lost their inherent alertness, and his body showed signs of losing control. Some thought he was merely intoxicated, but this detail contradicted the amount of alcohol he had consumed earlier throughout the evening. In the context of a party with many guests, this change did not immediately provoke a strong reaction. From around 11:30 at night until nearly 3 o'clock in the morning, Yu Menglong almost ceased to appear in the common areas of the apartment. According to some accounts, he was taken to a private room to rest. A notable coincidence is that during the same period, Irene Song and the host Jay Guang also did not appear frequently before the other guests. When someone inquired about Yu Menglong's condition, the answer given was that he was sleeping and needed to be left alone to recover. Those explanations at that time did not create obvious suspicion. However, when the puzzle pieces were put together later, that sequence of events began to carry a different meaning. What truly happened in that closed room remains a large void in the records. There are no images, no recordings, and no direct testimony describing in detail the final minutes before Yu Menglong was discovered beneath the building. Analysis from a contextual perspective shows that the party was not merely a social meeting. Yu Menglong was invited for the reason of discussing a new film project, in the context of his career showing signs of flourishing again after a long period of silence. This comeback, according to many industry sources, carried not only personal significance, but could also impact the order of interests that had been established beforehand. From the perspective of motive, it is necessary to clearly distinguish between what is shown publicly and what may be hidden behind the scenes. Outwardly, no conflict was recorded between Yu Menglong and the guests. However, in an industry where power, opportunity, and silence often go hand in hand, Unspoken motives are sometimes the deciding factors. At this stage of the story, no conclusion can be drawn yet. What exists is only a series of events, indirect accounts, and notable information gaps. It is from these gaps that questions begin to form, and from there, the investigation into this fateful night truly begins. As dawn broke, the luxury complex in the Chaoyang district quickly became a cordoned-off scene. Authorities appeared in a tense atmosphere, establishing a security perimeter once the identity of the victim was confirmed. Within a short time, the news spread with breakneck speed. Hundreds of reporters gathered at the gates of the building, while social media began to surge with speculations, questions, and fragmented pieces of information. From the very first hours of the investigation, investigators noted details at the scene that did not entirely align with simple hypotheses. On the wall of the first floor, about 1.5 meters from the ground, long scratches appeared, accompanied by faint fingerprints and peeling paint fragments that had fallen below. According to the initial analysis of forensic experts, in the case of a person falling freely due to an accident or voluntarily, the common reflex is to curl the body and protect the head, rather than clinging to or clawing at a vertical surface. These marks were therefore considered an anomaly that needed to be clarified. When the investigation team proceeded to inspect the apartment on the 5th floor, identified as the starting point of the fall, the picture became even more complex. The window curtains in one room had a horizontal cut about 30 centimeters long. The cut was neat and sharp. More notably, the outer surface of the curtain was almost free of dust, in contrast to neighboring apartments, which were covered in a thick layer of dust due to the cold early autumn winds. This detail suggested that the curtains might have been used or manipulated very shortly before the incident occurred. During the examination of the body, another discovery left many questioning. In Yu Menglong's pocket, investigators found 2 luxury watches. One belonged to the Daytona line, valued at a high level, and the other was a Submariner model, also of significant value. For those who knew Yu Menglong, this detail created a clear contradiction. He was described as living simply, usually using only basic items and not having the habit of carrying luxury goods. Yu Menglong's family later confirmed that they were unaware of the existence of these 2 watches among his personal assets. According to relatives, the majority of his income was sent home for the family to manage, and his lifestyle was always modest. The question regarding the origin of the 2 watches quickly became the focus of public discussions. While the official investigation was still underway, the online community began to perform independent analysis. Some discovered old social media posts by J. Guang, the screenwriter and owner of the apartment where the party was held. Images posted previously showed 2 watches with characteristics remarkably similar to those found on the victim, along with information about the location in the Chaoyang district. Although these findings have not been officially confirmed, they still contributed to the increasing suspicion among the public. The climax of the forensic investigation came when the detailed examination results were revealed. According to the reports, the alcohol concentration in Yu Menglong's blood was unusually high, far exceeding what could be achieved with only a small amount of wine. This contradicted the accounts of many witnesses at the party, who insisted he only drank a few glasses and remained sober for most of the time. Beyond that, Experts also discovered the presence of a strong sedative in the victim's body. This substance was described as having the ability to cause loss of consciousness within a short period after absorption, and the amount found was sufficient to place an adult in an involuntary state. This discovery opened up an entirely new direction for the investigation, while simultaneously raising concerns that the victim might have been influenced by external factors. The marks on Yu Menglong's body continued to reinforce the suspicions. Oval-shaped bruises appeared on the neck and shoulders, with sizes consistent with the grip of an adult hand. According to the assessment of independent experts, these marks could have formed within a period of 30 minutes to 2 hours before death. Additionally, scratches on the hands and arms showed signs of resistance. Beneath the fingernails, skin and blood samples from another person were discovered, becoming a key detail that needed to be cross-referenced. Faced with this information, public opinion was quickly divided. One stream of thought argued that the forensic data had crossed the boundary of a normal accident. The other stream remained cautious, emphasizing that all conclusions must wait for the official investigation results. In that context, the media played the role of amplifying every small detail, turning each new piece of information into a wave of debate. Projects related to the individuals present that night began to feel the impact. Several contracts were suspended, and broadcasting platforms re-examined scheduled content. The prolonged silence from the involved parties further increased the pressure. This was no longer just a legal case. It gradually became a test for the image of and public trust in the entertainment industry. At this stage, the overall picture still contained many gaps. Scientific evidence raised serious questions, but was not yet sufficient to close the case. It was the intersection of forensic data, media reaction, and public speculation that pushed the story to a new threshold, where every detail was scrutinized under the light of suspicions and skepticism. As forensic results were gradually released and public opinion had not yet subsided, the focus of attention began to shift from the scene to the people present that night. Out of the 17 guests at the party, 8 were invited to work with the authorities to serve the investigation. This summons, although explained as a standard procedure, still created a powerful wave of discussion, especially as the name of Irene Song repeatedly appeared in public talks. Irene Song's silence became a factor of great interest. In many incidents involving celebrities, the common reaction is a quick statement to reassure the public and protect one's personal image. However, in this case, no official statement was released for a long time. Media channels and social networks began to interpret that silence in various ways. Some argued it was a cautious legal strategy. Others viewed it as a sign of extreme psychological pressure. The consequences were not slow to follow. Many film and television projects featuring Irene Song were postponed or re-evaluated. Several brands announced the termination or suspension of cooperation contracts, citing image risk as the reason. These decisions, though preventive, directly impacted her career, pushing the goddess of youth image into an unprecedented state of uncertainty. Parallel to this, Guang, the owner of the penthouse and the person believed to be closely linked to many details of the case, gradually disappeared from the public space. His apartment was sealed for the investigation, and according to neighbors, he was last seen in early September. Rumors of him leaving Beijing, or even possibly going abroad, spread rapidly. However, authorities refused to confirm or deny this information, making the picture even more obscure. In the absence of official information, scenarios circulated in public opinion began to take shape. Some anonymous sources, claiming to be present at the party, provided speculative accounts of a pre-planned scheme. According to these accounts, Yu Menglong was not just the victim of a random incident, but the center of a chain of pressure that had lasted for many years. Yu Menglong had long been known as an actor who did not easily compromise with the unofficial rules of the industry. Instead of relying on relationships or patronage, he chose a development path based on ability and personal principles. This decision, according to some analyses, caused him many obstacles, including being restricted from participating in large projects for a long period of time. By the year 2025, the situation began to change. Yu Menglong completed a large-scale project and was preparing to appear in a film expected to mark his strong comeback. This shift, in the eyes of some, could be seen as a challenge to the power structures that had existed stably in the industry. Circulating scenarios suggested that in this context, Yu Menglong might have become an unwanted symbol, an example showing that success is still possible without following hidden compromises. This, according to speculations, caused him to fall into the crosshairs of those who wanted to maintain the old order. In the stories retold, Irene Song was described as a key factor due to her pure image and high level of credibility in the eyes of the public. Her inviting Yu Menglong to drink at the party, though formally just a social gesture, became the intersection of many hypotheses. Some sources suggested that the sedative detected in the victim's body might have been introduced into the drink, causing him to lose control. According to published forensic analyses, the bruises on the neck and shoulders showed signs of a struggle. This aligned with the hypothesis that Yu Menglong had regained consciousness in a weakened state and attempted to resist. However, due to the influence of the sedative, his ability to defend himself was severely limited. These details, when placed next to the marks at the scene, contributed to the formation of a scenario suggesting that the scene might have been staged. However, it must be emphasized that all of the above scenarios are based on indirect accounts and speculative analysis. There is no public legal evidence confirming an organized plan or identifying the specific role of any individual. It is precisely the lack of an official conclusion that has left the story in a state of limbo, where the boundary between truth, hypothesis, and public emotion becomes fragile. At this time, the incident is no longer just a story about the death of an individual. It has become a symbol for larger questions about power, silence, and responsibility in the entertainment industry. Each piece of new information is scrutinized thoroughly, and every information gap becomes fertile ground for further speculation. After all the published data, the circulated hypotheses, and the information gaps that cannot yet be filled, the name Yu Menglong is no longer associated with just a controversial case. In the public's perception, he is gradually being seen as a symbol of a person who chose a more difficult path, the path of personal principles in an environment accustomed to compromise. His death, even though the final cause has not yet been officially determined, has left a lasting echo far beyond the scope of a personal tragedy. The passing of Yu Menglong is not merely a full stop, but a massive crack on the glamorous mask of the entertainment industry. Where fame and power intertwine, silence is sometimes not accidental, but a cruel choice in the face of invisible but persistent pressures. Perhaps behind the radiant smiles on stage is a system operating with hidden rules that we have never truly understood. The reaction of society at this time is a test for the power of collective concern. In an era where information and speculation are separated only by a thin thread, we are faced with the challenge of alertness and fairness. As projects stall and images are shaken, we realize that suspicion itself can create heavy aftershocks, sometimes even more painful than a clear legal verdict. The journey to find answers for Yu Menglong still lies ahead, leaving behind a costly lesson about the fragility of fame and the responsibility of those who hold power. Perhaps the most certain thing right now is not a final conclusion, but the awakening of the public to what has always been hidden behind the dazzling exterior. Those questions will never stop until the truth is returned to its rightful form, in the most transparent and dignified way. Your every concern at this moment is an affirmation that the truth deserves to be protected. Please help me spread this by clicking like and subscribe. If you have your own thoughts on the story of Yu Menglong, please leave your opinion in the comments section so that we can together build a kind and transparent community.